Good morning, colleagues. Thank you very much for joining our side event, Saving Lives Through Coordinated Actions, and with the example of Gaza, Syria, and Ukraine. We are very excited today to reflect together on what is coordination, what are the challenges that we are facing, and what the solutions we have found. And I'm very excited about all the panelists that are here today representing the Mine Action AoR in Gaza, the Mine Action AoR in Syria, but also the donor perspective from the government of Germany, but also the national authority perspective with the Ministry of Ukraine. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a fruitful discussion today. I will now give the floor to Dr. Peter Haus, the head of the Mine Action Department at the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very grateful we have this discussion and we can focus on three important and completely different contexts like Ukraine, Syria, and Gaza. And coming from a donor country, I don't like to speak about shrinking means because this is not the case, and even I have hope that we can spend as much money as last year, this year, or the coming years. So this is not the problem. The problem is the sheer mass of demining actions in the world, and we have to be more present and more effective worldwide. So what is the aim of our mine action in these different contexts? To become more efficient. Efficiency is key, and to become more efficient, we have to coordinate ourselves better together. How can we coordinate better? Well, the best thing would be that we come in a context where the state has complete ownership and will tell us where the problem is and where we can go in and where we can start with the mine action, so that we can focus only with our international partner, with our INGO partners to go in the country and getting back the report of the mine action they do and deliver our job as soon as possible and go back to the national authorities. So we have three different areas to focus on today. The one is, Minister, I speak under your control, is Ukraine, where you have a huge state ownership. The government of Ukraine is present, a little bit too much present for my taste, with too many authorities, but they are perfectly engaged in what the government has to do. So we have a strong partner here, and we know where to go, what to do, in what time frame, and what the legal restrictions are in this very difficult time of this awful war in Ukraine. Then we have a context, Syria, where we couldn't speak about one Syria until recently, and we had, as Germany, as donors, we focused on the northeastern part, and since Assad left, we have now with Halo Trust together, the one in the northeast was HI, and now we have with Halo Trust a huge new cooperation in the northwest and in the south. So in the south from Jordan towards Damas, and in the northwest in the area in between Aleppo and the areas where people could come back from Turkey, like from Antakya and from Kilis from the north. And this is a huge field, and until now in the area of Idlib we couldn't do anything because this was either the rebel area or Assad land. So in the third context, it's Gaza Strip, and Gaza is, as you all know, we are not even able to go in with equipment right now. All we can do in small project is to do an assessment and to do a bit of risk education and risk management. That's all for the time being, and for the rest we can discuss later on. The rest is open. When we can go in, with what equipment we go in, who will decide where we clear first, and this is maybe a bit different to Syria and to Ukraine because we speak less about normal landmines, but a lot of debris and explosive ordnance. So the context is completely different. The key for more efficiency is coordination. Who can coordinate? This is in the best case the government, and if you don't have a government like in Gaza, you need an international address where all information go together. We know what we want to do, and the authorities or the people who know the country can tell us where to go first and what is more important to do, and that all of our partners can report back to the coordination center. In Syria, it's important, and I'm lucky to hear that it's already the case, that we have one Syria, one-stop shop, and it's not divided in different areas of Syria any longer, because this is a huge problem if you have a policy to restore order and mine action in one country, and you have 3 different areas where you have to work, and 3 different types of coordination mechanisms. So I'm glad to hear this as a first result, and I give it back to you, Maria, to say what next comes.
Thank you very much. And as Dr. Rose said, Mine Action AoR coordinating mine actions, there is a huge diversity in terms of coordination structures, in terms of challenges, and the best person to discuss about this is the Global Mine Action AoR coordinator, Crystal Luke-Forest, who will set the scene for the Global Mine Action AoR. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Welcome, everybody. I am so pleased to see so many friends, so many people who have contributed to the Mine Action AoR over the years. I can see Anna, victim assistance specialist from Syria, who did a fabulous job. I can see the deputy coordinator of the protection cluster. I can see Justin Brady within the ISC Secretariat, many others, NGOs, UN, colleagues. You've been here supporting, in Yemen, in, Javed, Suleiman. Really, thank you all for all you've been doing to try to strengthen coordination. So why are we here today? And by the way, if you need to sit, there are a few seats that you can access behind, as if you were an interpreter. I can see that Kelly and Julie managed to get through there. So. Wonderful, very resourceful, great. So why are we here? We're here because mine action saves lives, and that coordination saves lives. So mine action coordination should save many more lives. We know that every year there's between 5,000 and 10,000 casualties. So we need to prevent people from dying or being injured. Strengthening coordination is critical to try to achieve that, because part of coordination is not just meeting. Part of coordination is assessing where are the people that no one is reaching, and how do we reach them with something, a message, a safety, handbook that's going to help them to protect themselves. So definitely very important for us to coordinate information about needs assessment, about, activities, and so on. So now I want to talk a little bit about the coordinators, because, globally here at Geneva, what do? We organize fabulous meetings, but what we do, what I hope I do well, is to support the coordinators in the field. Unfortunately, I haven't had a huge team to do that, but I've tried my best. And I have noticed what are the success criteria for coordinators to really be successful. So the first one is leadership skills. So our coordinators who've been successful have developed leadership skills. The second one is knowledge of the humanitarian architecture, who is who has influence, who has power, as well as, of course, knowledge of the mine action sector, what it can contribute. Then another big piece, and it's enormous, it's information management. Asking the right questions, getting data that we're going to be able to use to prioritize is essential. We have it in some countries, when our coordinators are lucky enough to have one information management officer to support them, it makes a huge difference. Unfortunately, we've not been able to do that in all the emergencies. So a big plea to the donor community, let's put one IM officer everywhere that's needed to support the coordinators. In fact, in many places, what we need is an IM coordinator who can bring in the IM officers of many organizations around the table to, share data. Sharing data is still a challenge, and we'll hear later from Rory on this. Then another success criteria is trust. There needs to be trust between the coordinators and the partners and between all the different partners sitting around the table. And that takes time, that takes developing relationship. That's why we do that, the NDM as well. Now I want to talk about access to resource. Of course, the more resource you have, the more successful you can be as a coordinator. If you have all the money, if you're sitting on $500 million, actually I can actually stand here and look taller. Yeah, if you have 500 million, well, you get taller. People come to your meetings, and then you decide you know how to distribute the money. Easy, right? Much more difficult where the money is going to all your partners to get them to, to come to the table and share the resource. That's why leadership and trust is so important in our relationship. Now, the big challenge, there's many. Mr. Brady is going to talk about the challenge of the humanitarian reset and lack of funding and so on. What I want to talk about is national authorities. For us, the MAOR so far, we mostly had UN and NGOs in the tent. Why? Because the Mine Action area of responsibility is mostly active in conflict settings, where the national authorities are party to the conflict. So having them into this humanitarian coordination mechanism can be very challenging for us. But we want to, open the tent, and also the private sector, by the way. We're going to focus more on national authorities now, but the private sector is also an area where it's complicated for us to say, okay, can we bring them to the table? And many of the coordinators have raised that. So I just want to basically ask a question and hear from our coordinators as to how do we handle this challenge of national authorities, the coordination with the Mine Action AoR. And I'm just going to pause now and just have Justin come and talk about the humanitarian reset. And I'll then give the floor to James, who has a few comments on that. So you're aware about what's happening beyond Mine Action. Please.
I get to be tall, too. Thank you, Christelle. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Justin Brady. I'm the head of the Interagency Support Branch. I say those who don't know me because prior to in 2012, I moved from OCHA to OCHA from UNMAS, where I was 9 years and 17 years in Mine Action, so it's very good to be back with you all. Prior to the funding crisis that we're all facing with the pause of U.S. money, as well as cuts in other donor funding to the humanitarian sector, we were already looking at trying to reform the system. This cluster system, which originated after the tsunami in 2005 and has served us well up and through COVID, I would say, is proving not to be necessarily fit for purpose in the current environment. And Tom Fletcher, who is the Undersecretary General for OCHA, as well as the Emergency Relief Coordinator, asked his deputy, Joyce Masuya, and the Secretary General of NRC, Jan Egeland, himself a former Emergency Relief Coordinator, to look at where efficiencies could be found in the system, and that document was published at the end of 2024. There were some things in that were described as radical. Most of us looked at that and said that is barely a starting point for the reforms that we have to make. All of that has now been accelerated by the funding crunch that we are in. Coming out of IASC principles, the Interagency Standing Committee is the highest level. You think of it at a country level, you have an HCT and an HC. Well, at the global level, the HC is Tom Fletcher, and the members of that HCT are the heads of every humanitarian UN agency, as well as a number of key NGO partners, as well as NGO coordinations forums such as ICFA. And at that meeting in February of the principals, they told Tom, you need to go make some hard decisions. And in order to do that, he set a consultation process in motion with a letter that was published on the 11th of March. That letter is available, as is the efficiencies document on the IASC website, where he set in motion essentially 5 work streams that we are working on. One is for the emergency directors group. Those are those that are responsible for the operational coordination from the IASC members, to look where we might accelerate the transition to a development setting and de-hat the HC function. That has been decided and will soon be promulgated. There are a number of countries. We are not cutting and running. These are countries that were already on the radar for potentially removal of the IASC architecture of the cluster system and the HC function. A second stream is through the IASC deputies. They've been meeting over the past couple of days, and in fact, this evening at 6 o'clock, we'll have a meeting with Tom Fletcher and the deputies. And what he was asking for them were some broad brushstrokes, bold brushstrokes, on how we could change the system. We then have both, and that will conclude next week. So those 2 work streams are going to come, as I like to say, I get to put them to bed next week. We have 3 more. One is done by Denise Brown. Those of you from Ukraine will be familiar with her as the RCHC. She has been tasked by Tom to look at the leadership piece and how we can better empower the humanitarian coordinator in country and take the decision-making out of places like Geneva, New York, and other headquarters. She has a consultative group of HCs that she's working with and is consulting very broadly. Then there is the chairs of the OPAG within the IASC. Of course, we have many structures, as an HCT does. This is the Operations and Policy Advisory Group. The 2 chairs, that's Tom Chaban from UNICEF and Gabrielle Wyman from Save the Children. They are looking at the cluster system itself and how we could potentially change the cluster system. That has will be directly affecting what we're talking about here today with the AoR. This AoR was activated in 2011 for the Libya crisis. I was the acting director of UNMAS at the time, and it got us past the sort of UN-dominated response through the interagency process to bring in our NGO partners and have a more comprehensive response in support of the humanitarian architecture. There is a possibility that clusters will combine, that some will be stood down, but more importantly, likely, the decision-making process of when to stand them up and when to stand them down will be given to the humanitarian coordinator and no longer a decision that is taken by the IASC principals. And then finally, there's my work stream, which is to make the IASC itself more focused and efficient. That's a fallout of all of these other processes. So let me stop there.
Thank you so much, Justin Brady, for joining us to share this with us. One word from my boss, who is James Staples, Chief of Policy, Advocacy and Donor Relation in UNMAS Geneva. Come on, James.
And look at what a great job you're doing. What a great side event.
Oops, careful.
Okay. Well, thank you, Justin, for that summary. I think it's really important that if you do have the chance, you do have a look at those documents. They're very easy to find. You can literally Google them and they'll come up. And I think it's really worth emphasizing that this is probably going to be the biggest change to the humanitarian coordination system for a couple of decades. And so it's quite vital that we as a mine action sector have our voice heard and we have our say upon how we think that changes. The floor's still open, essentially. There's no decisions yet. But I don't want to preempt what happens, but there could be some pretty fundamental changes, right? The MAORs could be completely changed. They could be removed. Clusters could be deleted or merged. We could move to area-based coordination. So there's a lot at stake here. And what I am doing, kind of with Christel's help, is kind of tracking those 5 streams that Justin mentioned. And I want to make sure and provide the opportunity for you as the sector to be able to contribute to that conversation. So we have a discussion paper setting out where mine action might fit and what some of our views might be. What I'd like to do is to get as many of you as possible to be able to contribute and to see that. So please come and find me and my team, provide us your details, we'll pass you the paper, we can have an internal discussion. My aim really is twofold. Number one, I want to make sure that we as a mine action sector explore what we could do and cohere the views. We've heard how important coordination is. And then secondly, make sure that your views are represented as we go through that reform process. So just a flag to say, please come and find me and my team and be part of that conversation. Thank you.
Back to you, Mary.
Thank you very much for this useful insight. So now we're going to move on to practical experience of coordinating mine action, and I will first give the floor to Gaza, represented by John Edwards, the Mine Action AoR coordinator, and Rory Collins, the IM Global Advisor with UNMAS.
Yeah, thank you, Marie. And it's great to see a full room for a side event on coordination. I think it speaks volumes on the shared value we see in efficient and effective coordination. So thank you for being here. I will obviously focus on Gaza, but before getting into that, obviously as an AoR, we have also expanded into the West Bank recently, increasingly considerable needs there. However, within the West Bank conflict, of course, or context, we have established mine action authorities through the PMAC and the Israeli Mine Action Authority, and we're looking forward to working with them closely in the future. So in order to tackle, I guess, coordination in Gaza in the absence of a national authority, I'll provide a quick sort of 3-4 minute roundup or overview of the coordination context, and then I'll hand over to Rory to present on the IMS and the various tools created in the absence of a national authority. The Gaza context is, of course, unprecedented, and I'm consciously use that word. It's been so overused, it's perhaps lost meaning, but it is unprecedented. It's unprecedented in the complexity of the political environment and the sensitivities surrounding HMA, the access environment, both in terms, or both internal in Gaza, but also to enter Gaza, often requiring partners to manage projects remotely. It's unprecedented in the restrictions on the entry of critical equipment for mine action actors and the permissions to deliver the full spectrum of HMA activities. It's unprecedented in the density of explosive contamination in heavily populated urban centres, further complicated by fluid population movements and the breakdown of public order and security, both for humanitarian convoys and the communities that we serve. And what I'm trying to show here is the backdrop of chaos within which we are trying to establish these coordination structures within, and as a coordination body, add value to partners, and that's really critical, adding value to partners. I think we've all worked in contexts where coordination forums are largely viewed as a waste of time. Forums with lots of potential very interesting dialogue, but no tangible outputs that impact the obstacles that partners face on a daily basis. And I think both Katerina and I are very conscious of trying to ensure that the Mine Action AoR for Gaza and OPT is adding tangible value to partners on the ground who are enduring the most incredible circumstances and risks on a daily basis. Generally, in such fragile and complex environments, of course, we have the national mine action authorities who would be a key partner to support actors in addressing some of these key operational challenges, be that access, importation of equipment, tasking, liaison with armed actors or parties to the conflict, and of course, national standards and QA and QC. However, this is not the case in Gaza, therefore this falls on the AoR and of course on UNMAS as the lead agency. Due to the density of the contamination and widespread destruction in Gaza, a large part of the role of the AoR has been focused on mainstreaming mine action as the key enabler for the provision and, during the ceasefire, of course, the scale-up of humanitarian activities through the continued engagement in response coordination mechanisms and the ICCG to ensure that data collection on contamination is integrated across the intercluster system and that mine action activities link with the wider humanitarian priorities. Whether that be through linking EURE with distribution points and monitoring points to ensure we're reaching vulnerable populations on the move, providing humanitarian frontline workers with risk education, or ensuring priority sites for humanitarian relief, i.e. access roads, warehouses, etc., receive explosive hazard assessments to facilitate the safe distribution of life-saving aid to displaced populations. Critically, due to fluidity of the context and the limited access environment, information triangulation and dissemination to partners on critical changes in the context, including shifting processes for notification of movement, for evacuation orders, fuel allocation, and other critical operational components that appear to change on a weekly basis and are a key void that the AoR has filled in the absence of a national authority, and an area that through engagement of the wider coordination framework and our networks, we're able to triangulate, verify, and share with partners to provide them with up-to-date, accurate information to make informed decisions in an environment where risks, both financially and security, are huge. Another key area that both UNMAS and the AoR have stepped in to support partners is through the establishment of technical standards and guidelines. As mentioned, due to the lack of the NMMA, there are no tasking system or national mine action standards. Although we, of course, have UNMAS as a guideline, the complexities of operating in Gaza, including on SOPs, measuring of beneficiaries during fluid population movements, and widespread destruction, meant that as a sector and as an AoR, we have prioritised the development of technical standards facilitated through the technical working groups with input from partners on the ground to accurately guide activities and measure results. And I should thank GICHD for their continued support in that process as well. Finally, of course, in terms of coordination, the tasking system and information management system are also key to ensure the efficient use of resources, and resources in Gaza are thin. It's also important to streamline coordination and, of course, ensure sound reporting. I'm very conscious that I'm not particularly qualified to talk in depth about IMS systems, so I'm going to pass over to Rory, who can provide more details.
Thanks very much. Hello, everyone. So I'm Rory Collins from UNOPS, Information Management and Analytics team. I'm going to get in trouble if I don't say this, but UNOPS does have the largest mine action operational capacity in the UN, and a big part of that is information management. We put together a video just trying to outline the challenges that we're facing in Gaza and some of the IM tools that we think help in the coordination, and I'll talk you through it, so please. The audio, is there? Sorry. We're the IM people, we should know this thing. Yeah. No audio? Apologies, guys. It was a pretty cool video. You know, I'll talk you through it. Yeah. Look, I'll talk about the system itself. So we build our systems using cloud-based technology, which is key for coordination because it allows us to connect with our partners automatically. We set up these. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry.
Testing.
It leaves behind boring problems. It leaves behind hidden dangers like explosive hazards, which make recovery dangerous.
We can crack on with the video. It's okay. I'll just
Sorry.
It's okay.
I think we just move on.
Yeah.
We get the picture.
Just go to the slide. I'll talk to you the slide. Sorry. Apologies for that, everyone.
It was a lovely video.
This was my big moment as well. Look, the slide might take a while to get up. So basically, we have these cloud-based solutions. They allow us to connect with partner data through automated data sharing protocols. We basically create a channel from our system to partner systems, and it just makes the data sharing a lot easier, more efficient. And then what we do, if you can go down to the next slide, please. What we do in Gaza is we take all that data, whether it be our own data from reporting, whether it be from partner data, whether it be from open source information, whether it be platforms like ACLID, etc. We run these natural language processing scripts. They're a node of AI that basically helps us to take all that data and create what we call a single source of truth, like a common understanding of the threat. And then that is used layered with satellite imagery to give a better threat assessment, damage assessment, which will then ultimately inform your planning and prioritization of all mine action activities. Now, we do work with some key partners for that. A lot of the AI tools we developed have been done in collaboration with MIT. Carnegie Mellon have been very supportive of us, as well as the Swiss government have, with their personnel as well, has been critical to how we develop these systems. And then also, as part of that, like sharing that information, we have set up an information technical working group, just to find out what the needs are and what technology we as IM people can bring to the coordination efforts, and we think it's helping. So thank you very much. Oh, it's okay. Do you want to watch a cool video? Yeah, we can try the video.
Let's give it another try.
Yeah.
Still no sound. Sorry.
No worries.
We can share it. We can put it on the. Can we put it on the NDM site?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay, we'll
Thank
do
you.
that.
Thank you very much, Rory and Gaza. So I will now give the floor to our next country with Ida, the Mine Action AoR coordinator in Syria.
Thank you very much, Marie. Thank you very much, Marie, and thank you, colleagues. A lot of things that John has spoken about Gaza apply quite a bit to Syria as well, except that at the time, at this stage and for a number of years, we have had a very, very complex coordination structure of basically 3 different responses in 3 different contexts. And on top of that, we had also the whole of Syria coordination structures, so 4 coordination structures to deal with, none of which, of course, have been speaking to each other, which is great. On the whole of Syria level, we have had basically the task to combine all of these not speaking to each other contexts and coordination structures, which made it particularly challenging to get things done on the ground. I think it's fair to say, maybe to just give you a bit of an overview of in what context we are operating. So in Syria, since 2011, roughly about 1.2 million explosive munitions have been used. This means if we know that anything between 10 and 30% of those munitions fail to detonate, we are looking at about 360,000 unexploded items littering Syria. This is not including mines, and this is not including IEDs. So the contamination is massive, and the 4 coordination structures in northwest Syria, northeast Syria, and central and southern Syria have each had their own different challenges, with an additional challenge on the whole of Syria level to bring it all together and have some kind of response going on. At the moment in Syria, with the change of context, we do not have a national mine action authority. However, we do have in Northeast Syria Mine Action Center, or NESMAC, that has also its own dynamics and own contextual challenges to operate as well. In Syria itself, because of this fragmentation, we have never been able to conduct a Syria-wide non-technical survey. So we don't actually have maps of contamination, which makes our work in as much more difficult. On the other hand, and at the same time, just like the response was fractured and coordination was fractured, equally so was the collection of data fractured as well. So we have 3 different parts of Syria collecting some data, not necessarily within the minimal data requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So we have this massive fragmentation on all levels. In December, when the context changed, in so many ways, we have seen as a sector this as an opportunity to unite. And Mine Action AoR, I'm proud to say, is the first sector in the entire Syria response to unite. So as a sector, we were able to bring all partners together in a span of a month and a half, which also made it possible to kick off some of these processes that used to be fragmented. So in one way, the AoR has played a crucial role in getting this unified response, and we are still catching up to speed, right? So in some way, it has to also be mentioned that coordination itself and mine action in general in Syria has been the most underfunded sector in the entire response, meaning that in the 2024 HRP, of 51 million that was asked, only 13% was funded. In any given context, coordination is the first victim of funding cuts. And so we've had this situation for quite a while where coordination in northeast Syria, northwest Syria has been lacking, and also on the whole of Syria level as well. So one coordinator has been really tasked to do quite a lot of work to get the response going. In this new, I have to also mention that in this new context, and in any given context, it's extremely important to support the NGO-led co-coordination of any cluster, because in Syria it has really proved quite important given all the funding cuts and the cuts in coordination in general. Equally so, it is extremely important to keep the independence of coordination from the cluster lead agency and from the co-hosting agencies, which is why I wanted to also denote that the sign that John and I have is also a wrong one, because it puts us into the hat of our co-hosting agency. In any case, to revert back from the challenges and to bring in some hope into Syria, again, we are a united sector now. What we really are now in the need of is to give the importance of mine action to the new authorities, which we are very much strongly encouraging to form a new national authority, and also reach out to the mine action authorities in northeast Syria to unite. The contamination in Syria is massive, and coupled with the lack of funding, we will all have our work cut out for ourselves. But it is important that we keep on going, simply because unless we do the decontamination of Syria, other sectors will have much more difficulties to respond. They will have much more difficulties to get to deliver services and to deliver contribute to reconstruction of Syria. The great opportunity of Mine Action AoR in Syria is really to shape the way that the new Mine Action Authority is going to look like. And as a final note from my end, one of the key messages from the AoR to all the partners in Syria is that there is a lot of work to do, and there is plenty of work for all of us for years to come. So we have to unite as one sector and have to be able to respond as such. I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aida. Now we will move on to the last country we're going to address today, which is Ukraine, and I will be representing the Mine Action AoR, and Deputy Minister of Economy will represent the government of Ukraine. So when I was preparing for this side event, I asked myself a few questions. The first one is, why do we have to coordinate? Is it just beyond covering gaps and avoiding duplications? What else do we have to do? And also, how do we measure successful coordination? And I think from these past years in Ukraine, where we've been extremely lucky in many ways, that Ukraine has drawn the attention, we received support from the international community. One thing exceptional, the Mine Action AoR has dedicated funding in Ukraine with the government of Norway, and I think Christelle can say that this really rarely happens in the coordination of the Mine Action AoR. There are three main areas that the Mine Action AoR and also in Ukraine should address. First, as we say, it's avoiding gap and duplications. The second is building cohesion among the humanitarian partners. And as you know, and then you will see, not only humanitarian actors are working in the mine action sectors. And then the third main thing about the Mine Action AoR is it's an exchange platform. Is it a platform where there can be peer support among the different NGOs, but also to support the development of national capacity, of national NGO. It is a platform where they can come and they can seek for advice or how to develop their own activities. And to be able to achieve this, I think the Mine Action AoR structure, and as you have seen from Gaza, from Syria, is very diverse, but is also has to also be very flexible. In Ukraine, to be a bit more specific, the Mine Action AoR started in 2015, and it was called at the time the Mine Action Subcluster. And this Mine Action Subcluster was a group of all the stakeholders involved in the mine action sector, meaning national authority, donors, NGOs, etc. But at the time, it was, I would say, a rather small community. But when the full-scale invasion started in 2022, the members or the organizations contributing to the Mine Action AoR became much, much bigger. And each meeting had around 60, 70, 80 people. And there was a need to regroup, a need to refit for purpose, which is support coordination and support a better efficiency in delivering humanitarian mine action activities. So the decision was taken to regroup into the humanitarian actors, meaning UN agencies, national, international NGOs, and also to have also some kind of flexibility. As you can see, this is the structure of the Mine Action AoR as it is today. So we have the traditional actors, humanitarian, UN, international NGO, national NGOs, but also we had to find a way to also include other actors that do not fit in this, I would say, agreed structure. So I'm referring to, for instance, commercial companies that also delivering humanitarian mine action activities, but do not really fit in that humanitarian mine action or coordination. And also leave a room to national authority as well. So that's why we created this observer member kind of function to be able to discuss, to coordinate without being formally a member. And then we have 2 working groups on risk education and victim assistance. So we're focusing on this humanitarian core group. What are the things what are the challenges we have overcome, but also what are the main area we have focused on and what lessons do we draw today? So I think the main things that the Mine Action AoR has to do is, or has done in this case, is first of all provide analysis for mine action members, like meaning national NGOs or international NGOs. So for instance, I will not go too much into details, but in Ukraine we have developed an analysis on accreditation because you need to be accredited to deliver humanitarian activities, and this has supported partners to be able to decide which accreditation center they will pick to be able to get the accreditation as fast as possible. Then we did also an analysis on salaries to harmonize salaries of mine action field personnel. And then another thing we have worked on is training, providing that harmonization among NGOs. So we have provided training on information management. This year we provide training on PSE and GBV for all mine action field personnel. And then the third area, the second and third area is how to develop common approaches as a humanitarian sector. And 2 areas we have focused on as the Mine Action AoR is non-technical survey and also tasking and prioritizations. For instance, we identified there were discrepancies among operators on basically how to count square meters for non-technical survey. So we had to come and agree together as humanitarian partner what is the approach. And then on tasking, partners have identified common challenges that they face in the delivering of their humanitarian activities. And as a group, as a humanitarian group, we have addressed a list of challenges and offered some solution that we think that would be coherent for the humanitarian sector. But I think today, and this is where we have to be flexible and also fit for purpose, the Mine Action AoR should not work in silo, but and should also consider what is the overall national architecture of mine action. And as I said earlier, in Ukraine you have humanitarian NGOs, but you also have commercial actors, and most importantly you have national governmental mine action partners. And today the humanitarian sector have reached to some extent the peak of what it can do as humanitarian cohesion. And also the government of Ukraine has developed a strategy that was adopted last year with an operational plan, and the strategy has for aim, one of the main objectives of the strategy is to strengthen coordination for the delivery of humanitarian mine action activities. So that's also why we are now working in coordination with the Ministry of Economy to slowly transition, and what all the lessons learned from the Mine Action AoR can be taken to the overall national coordination and support as secretariat function the more national coordination capacity of the Ukrainian government. And I think is the ultimate goal of the Mine Action AoR. It's not here to survive forever, but to achieve what it's supposed to achieve and hand over when there is the possibility. I will now give the floor to the Deputy Minister of Economy, Hihor Pers-Karavani. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I will start, I want to remind our audience about respect for international law and respect for country bodies. And real reason why we are there right now is lack for this type of respect. And when we show in world map, we should across all borders of countries, not just part of countries. And I will start from what happened 2 years ago when Ministry of Economy was joined to Mine Action, but actually we were like a team, Ministry of Economy joined to topic humanitarian demining. We tried to manage big crisis that happened after full-scale invasion from Russian side, and understood how we, like a government, can make work inside of Mine Action system more systematically. We in Ukrainian Mine Action system was present a lot of different stakeholders, like a government unit, special emergency service, national police, national guard. Partly it was a military unit. Also, it was a lot of international humanitarian organization, a big number of different UN family structure, and so on, so on, so on. And it was really big chaos, and we tried to understand how we can manage humanitarian demining. But after probably 6 months, we understood that we can't focus just on humanitarian demining, and we focused on the whole picture, like mine action. We started from hard negotiation inside government between different structure, different units, and try to clarify different levels of responsibility. And at the same time, we started conversation with our international partners, donors, humanitarian organizations, and all who was involved to slowing this crisis, this problem, result of war. And first step that we did, we tried to find answer for pretty simple question: what is our goal? What we want to achieve? And simple question don't have simple answers. And we started to create our national mine action strategy and try to find answer in this process. And this process was super transparent and involved to this creation of this document all stakeholders who was present in that time. We spent 6 months to develop this document and extra 6 months to adopt this document at the national level. But right now we have Mine Action strategy for next 10 years and action plan for 3 years with concrete goals, with concrete tasks, for concrete responsible bodies, agencies, and for these activities involved to our international partners. When we was in this way, and right now I'm trying like evaluate what happened and how we achieved it. I don't want share with you some numbers about numbers of kilometers, square kilometers, hectares, operators, machinery, because it's huge numbers. We talked about this all time, about 84 operators, and biggest part is commercial operator who trying to create together with us some kind of market, strange market, but market. And for conclusion and like sharing with you some main points that we had in this way and what is like a basis for this result. It's just 3 simple points. First of all, it's political leadership. It was strong political leadership from our first Vice Prime Minister, Yulia Sviridenko, who bring to one table all stakeholders, and we start this hard conversation. It was really hard conversation. We started from weekly morning and weekly meeting at 8 like early morning every Monday. It was was super energy start of week. After that, we moved to our international stakeholders and collect and bring into one table more than 70 partners. And we're talking about our problems, about our goals, about our achievements. First of all, it's a big will and political leadership. Second, it's a transparent goal. Understandable task, all stakeholders who involved to this sphere, who involved to this topic. Problem so huge, and this like work and task enough for every stakeholders who involved with this problem. And third point, it's hardest point, it's a lot of efforts to coordinate all stakeholders, a lot of efforts to create a real transparent goal, identify real problem, not problems that we think is problem, but real problem, and a lot of efforts and a lot of work to trying to achieve those goals. Just 3 points, but it's a little bit hard point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that comes to the end of our presentation. So if anybody in the room has questions, please come in. Yes. Yes, please come.
And if you can introduce yourself.
My name is Habib Al-Haq Javed, and I am the UNOPS Mine Action Technical Advisor based in Yemen, specifically in Sana'a. Thank you very much for these presentations and contributions, very effective. What I want to repeat is a few main key points that was mentioned in this meeting, is like fragmentation, duplication of working, silo operation, and parallel efforts in coordination, and somehow also not receiving the required funding, which is usually through the UN appeal, attracting that to Mine Action AoR or subsector. Example of Ukraine, I would say, is unique because it already draw quite a lot of attention, attracting major funding, which was available for mine action globally. There is, in the way forward, and what we also have a major challenge, and it was somehow mentioned, is that the countries we operate, working with national authorities and engagement of the national authorities in coordination. So face it as a reality, in a lot of places, we are not working together. So if I flash back to the history of Mine Action, like long ago, either it was National Mine Action Center or it was UN Mine Action Center, which will bring everybody together, and the coordination role will be played very effective in terms of planning, tasking, deployments, and all of activities, and also. Now, also ensuring that mine action is integrated into the wider humanitarian response or development and peace. Now, the way forward, I believe we should really look into how we close and we reduce that distance in those countries where we are operating, avoid working in silos, while realizing that it's not possible everywhere. Quite a lot of challenges in some countries, without naming any country. This working UN or INGOs with the national authorities or national capacities in coordination is a challenge, and most of the time we are just moving forward without breaking that distance and coming close. So our energy really needs to be focused on how we can further improve that in the future in those countries we are working, as we all talk about national ownership, national capacities in those countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anna McKean, and I would like to talk as a former employee of OECE project coordinator. And there was a presentation about mine action subcluster, like history in Ukraine, and it was said a bit that from the period between 2015 and before full-scale invasion, that not that much work was done and there was not a proper coordination. But I just want to say that OECE project coordinator was a co-chair of the mine action subcluster together with UNDP, and we did lots of work. And the law on mine action was developed during this time. It was updated. The standard was there. The system was established. So lots of work was done. Of course, in 2022, more actors came. Of course, a new system was needed, but just to make sure that not to say that work was not in place and it wasn't coordinated. We coordinated quite well with all the partners, with national stakeholders. Thank you.
Yes, please.
You are absolutely agree. Our mine action system developed, and this mine action system tried to solve absolutely another problem. This problem was localized in the eastern part of Ukraine. It was not a big Gromadas, villages, and so on. But after full-scale invasion, its problem scaled up many times, and existing system was not ready. And the reason why like Ministry of Economy involved to this topic. And right now, when we trying to manage different type of problem, we are working together with Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Environment, and all ministries who cross-cut in this topic. Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Thank you for your point from a OSCE perspective. Can you tell me how many years it took to have the national law developed and adopted? How many years?
I think Miljan Kovachtaric would be better to answer, technical advisor to OECE, because he was involved from the scratch.
Yes. Okay. If you could tell us a little bit.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So we started with the development of the legislation. It was in 2016, and the first draft law was the first law that was adopted in 2018. Then we started again with the amendments to the law because there were some new elements that has to be changed, and basically the law was not functional as we were planning to be. And the recent and current law that is in place was adopted in 2020. So it was a long process, really, but we managed somehow. And at that time, when we were talking about legislation and the law, there was not much of the understanding from at that time government. Why do we need legislation? Because we have so many capacities, we have institutions that know their job. Why do we need the law on mine action? So that was a big effort from international community to persuade at that time government to tell them there is a need for legislation to regulate all these activities and coordination within the country, and to put in a place who is responsible for what. So as Deputy Minister said, now the situation is completely changed, and in my personal opinion, I think that we should again start to think about the amending legislation to be in line with the current situation in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. Deputy Minister, introducing myself, Emma Farge from Reuters News Agency. I had a question about how your plans are changing given the US funding cuts. Can you tell us how much of a blow that has been for your mine action plans and how you're adapting your plan? Thank you.
We have more than 70 partners who support in mine action in Ukraine. Also, government of Ukraine bringing resources, like taxpayers' resources, to mine action in Ukraine. When this process with US funding started, mine action in Ukraine not crashed. Everything is okay, because a lot of partners supporting us, and we are very thankful for that.
Thank you. I, Kesselbart, I'm working in the division of Peter Reuss for the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs. As I'm seeing many donor colleagues in the room behind me, I would want to pose the question to the experts, technical experts from the different contexts. What is it that you need from us as donors to raise visibility or to help you open the door? So I'm deliberately not asking for funding. You know the situation that we as donors are in at the moment. But what is it that you need from us to help you get the visibility, get the meetings that you need to coordinate well? If you could give us 2 or 3 key asks that we can take home, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question, and we actually asked that quite a lot. Obviously, we face an unprecedented number of challenges in Gaza, and at the moment, any direct contact, for example, with parties of conflict is very, very difficult and goes through OCHA. And so I guess from our side, apart from funding, which is obviously hugely lacking, it's to utilize that relationship with those parties to support Mine Action in getting out on the ground and delivering, the full breadth of Mine Action activities. So that's permissions to actually do positive actions on, and obviously the capacity to bring in dual-use items. Really critical for us.
And probably something that's available across contexts, so something that should be in any donors on any donor's to-do list, no matter the context. Anything in general?
Sorry, I was about to say that one thing that we've seen throughout the different contexts is that coordination is needed. So perhaps when a donor's contribution is thought through to support any given country, to understand if there is either capacity for coordination or at least always include some kind of capacity for coordination. It can be the Mine Action AoR, but it can be also supporting the national capacity of coordination.
I think one other thing that I think is important to highlight to all the donors is that Mine Action is a prerequisite for any other interventions in the entire response, which means also that if there is not funding, and we hope there will be funding for Mine Action specifically, to remind the other recipients of aid from other sectors that they should ideally include Mine Action as one of their interventions or in their interventions. Of course, depending on context, in Syria, this is extremely, extremely relevant also to raise the funding for Mine Action as well. I think, I agree with Marie about coordination is really, again, in any funding cuts, coordination is the first victim of funding cuts. I am support too, but, you know, I think coordination is one of the first victims, so, yeah.
Yeah. If I could add on the donor role, you know, in a perfect world, and let's look at Syria, right, where we're going to hopefully scale up the program because it's really needed. We should sit at the table together, operators, coordinator, and the key donors, and discuss, you know, what is it that you have to bring to the table? And then we come up with a joint up plan. And that would be fabulous. That way we force the donor coordination, and then you force us to also provide you with a good plan, you know, that's well coordinated. The whole humanitarian appeal system that the ISC and OCHA has, you know, basically organized does needs assessment, response planning, and then we go to with a hat to the donors. This is not right. What we need is go to the donors, tell, okay, see how much money we have, and then do the planning based on what the money we have. Because year after year, we're complaining, oh, our response plan is only 50% funded. Well, why did we ask for such money? We should have, you know, said how much we were going to get and prioritize based on the money we have in the bank instead of pretending we're going to spend, you know, 20 billion worth of humanitarian assistance and we only get 10. So I think that's, we need to change the game a little bit. And it's a pity Justin is not here, but I have to tell OCHA leaders is because I would really change the game, I think, if we had that. And then, of course, we need more donors. We need to diversify. You need to help us reach out to your private sector because right now the pie is so small compared to the needs. We cannot rely on the same 10 donors. And also we need predictability and multi-year because it's a long-term endeavor. So having a donor who, you know, was the most, I mean, the biggest donor for the past 10 years suddenly not come to the table anymore and suspend and freeze, this has a huge cost for the whole mine action sector. So predictability, multi-year, flexible, very important too. So yeah, here my message to donors for who are in the room. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Super short reflection from our side and experience. Bring to one table donors, operators, government unit, international organization. It's a mission impossible. It's need a lot of efforts and it should, but it's a task should did. And best way it's separate tables and one group of people who can compare this information. But it's need a lot of efforts, believe me.
Because you have so many donors and so many partners. In most countries, it's much easier because you have 10 people around the table, max.
One problem for Ukraine, yeah.
There is a question here, and then after in the back.
Yeah, Sebastian Kazak, Mines Advisory Group. I was, when hearing the question from Reuters, I mean, I think one of the biggest issues is that we are basically perceived as being part of the protection sector. And protection is not an emergency top agenda. So Gaza, it was not among the 4 priorities in the beginning, and I think still is not. And for, I don't want to name it, but a UN agency, basically, when responding to the US stop, it cut basically Mine Action out of it, and because protection is not life-saving. So the question is, what is life-saving is really key, and I think we have a big job to do as the mine action sector to convince everyone outside this room, not in this room, that mine action is life-saving. I don't need to explain why. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My question is to co-coordinators. I had the opportunity to experience that position some years ago in another complex environment, Northeast Nigeria, so very different from the one we've seen, but still complex. My experience, it was a lot of learning on the job, discovering stuff like HRP, HNO, etc., having to try to coordinate fundraising with several operators, etc., etc. My questions to you, first, do you have a similar experience that you have to learn on the job? And then second question, if answers is positive to the first question, do you think that we should think about kind of, with all due respect, professionalization of mine action coordination, like trainings, educations, resources, whatever? Thank you.
The answer is yes. So there was a lot to learn and a lot to catch up on. I think for me personally, the first thing that I did is to open the ISC guidelines, book on guidelines on cluster coordination, to see how relevant as co-coordinators we are, because that's not necessarily clearly outlined. And so in the space where the funding is so scarce, and again, where coordination takes the first hit, having a co-coordinator in a position where coordinator is not present becomes extremely, extremely relevant. I think as Christelle mentioned in the beginning, a lot of coordination work is really based on the ability to lead, to support, but also to have the humility to admit that you don't know certain things that you don't know. So yes, I would be very, very happy to have some guidance, support, etc. I mean, the protection cluster does have this course on coordination, but it's much more about soft skills. And I really do think that that would need to be followed up with like a proper explanation of the humanitarian structure, which is what Christelle also named as one of the important things to know in coordination. So yes to all, I would say. I'll hand it over to John.
I mean, I back pretty much all those points up as well. I think also it doesn't matter what role you're in fragile context, right? You're always learning. You could have 20 years experience and you know all the technical knowledge, but it needs to be it's so heavily contextualized, right? That you're constantly trying to get under the skin. It can take you years to fully understand a context, and context is everything. It really is. I think in terms of professionalizing it, yeah, definitely. And I think we'd all, probably in some capacity or another, love to see more of that. Particularly looking at, you know, power of decision making was something I think we struggled with. What happens if the AoR disagrees, say, with the lead agency? Who does that sort of fall to? What are those processes? Yeah. So the short answer would be yes.
And there is an intervention from the Global Protection Cluster. Joanne, you have the floor.
Yes. Hi, colleague. Joanne Wim, Deputy Coordinator at the Global Protection Cluster. And thanks, Christelle and the colleagues, for convening this. I just wanted to react since protection has been mentioned, and also the question from the German government colleagues. I think the question of whether protection is life-saving or not has come a lot. I think we know it's been very challenging for us globally and also at country level to address that question. I mean, for example, as part of the current humanitarian reset process and the reprioritization that is happening in different countries, we've worked a lot with OCHA to make sure that protection is not taken out. And I think that was a bit the direction it was going in at the beginning. And sorry, I'm not trying to blame anyone here, but it's just the reflection of what was happening. And I think we've done a lot of work to make sure that protection is ensured as part of this process. And I think we've come a long way from where we could have gone, you know, in the wrong direction. And when we say protection, we understand protection as a whole, right? Under the protection cluster, we have 4 different areas of responsibility, including child protection, gender-based violence, mine action, and housing, land, and property rights. So this is why for us it was it was and is still very important that protection is understood as an essential part of the humanitarian response. And I just want to pick up on what Aida mentioned as the way that Mine Action enables other part of the response. I think this is also the rationale and the narrative that we are trying to push as hard as we can, that if you do not address protection risks in any context, then those protection risks drive other humanitarian needs. If you don't address those risks, then it has an impact on all sectors of the humanitarian response. So I think maybe that's a bit of a response to your question on the ask. I think it's really, as we look now at reforming the clusters and reforming the humanitarian architecture, I think if we fail on considering protection risk, including mine action risk, then I think we're gonna fail on the overall response. There is a stream on centrality of protection within the humanitarian response. I think there has been a lot of debate of what has worked within this work stream, but I think now is really the time to make efforts, and those efforts come at different levels, including at, for donors to help push us that agenda, for humanitarian leadership, also to make sure that those questions are taken forward. And I think centrality of protection is across all sectors, so you make sure that we can mainstream properly, we can integrate, and also we have advocacy and efforts at leadership level to make sure that all protection risk, or at least the top 3-5 identified protection risk in each context, are addressed collectively, while at the same time we still need the specialized protection response to address specific needs, and therefore Mine Action is one of the areas that we have to look into. I don't want to touch necessarily on the reform, on what the coordination would look like for the protection cluster and the AoR's, because as Justine and James also mentioned, this is still a very ongoing process. So we don't know. I don't want to make speculation of what it would look like. But I think we've already been working on efforts to further simplify, to work closer together to reinforce this one protection voice. For example, we are, as the Global Protections Cluster, we're supporting protection analysis updates, which actually put together all the protection partners and AoR's to reinforce this, what are the top protection risks in those countries, and then that can help drive the agenda on making sure that this is coming through. So yeah, and just to say whether protection is life-saving, I think usually one of the first examples that we use when we're being asked the question is the mine action work, of how you save life by doing mine action, and therefore it's part of the protection agenda. Thank you.
If I may react immediately, strongly invite all the stakeholders to take your donors along on this topic. Not every ministry is as lucky as mine to have a humanitarian advisor who's worked in the field. Please also package the messages and the needs accordingly. Take your donors along. We are very much willing to support along the lines that the colleague has just mentioned. It's just a matter of being informed and being technically savvy enough. Thank you.
Hello, colleagues. Andrei Kondra, Center for Humanitarian Money in Ukraine. It's not a question, a little bit of a comment, if I may. It seems to me that in this discussion we're missing an important thing, which is about self-sufficiency. And in Ukraine, we, thanks to the personal efforts of the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Economy, we're trying to apply some maybe not that conventional methods to development of the mine action sector. And we are developing, as was discussed, we have a lot of commercial actors. And to be honest, I don't think that we should consider them differently from NGOs, because the purpose of their operation is still humanitarian, despite they might be commercial, they might be established as commercial entities. But the purpose is exactly the same. They are doing the same job which NGOs are doing. So from that perspective, I wouldn't say that they shouldn't be included into overall coordination or humanitarian coordination cluster or whatever activities, because their purpose is exactly the same. But that's not even the most important point. To be honest, I'm sitting here and feeling quite uncomfortable when we are talking about funding all the time. Definitely, taking the specifics of this sector, we cannot survive in this sector without involvement of donors. That's for sure. However, we in Ukraine are trying to apply self-sufficiency as much as possible. And we believe that that's sort of our homework, that's our part of the job. We don't want to rely, on donors forever. We understand that donors, these funds are not coming from nowhere. This taxpayers' money, which different countries are allocating. And we know all the challenges which we are currently facing in the international community and international relations with rapidly shifting priorities in terms of how and where the countries have to spend their taxpayers' money. So again, that's not even the key reason. We started this process of developing our self-sufficiency in this sector a long time ago, and we thought about that from the very beginning. So I think that we might be not in the specific coordination topic and panel, but we have to incorporate the self-sufficiency aspect into all of the discussions. And I think I have a feeling that we are lacking this here very much. And also, we are in Ukraine. We are not interested in the process. We're interested in the results, and that's why also it's our problem, right? We are not the reason for this problem, but it's our problem, and that's one of the reasons why we need to develop all the possible self-sufficiency approaches and mechanisms, because it's not the problem of the donors. We are very thankful for all the donors, and as I said, it's not possible as of today to survive in this sector without donor support, but it's our own problem, first of all, and we need to use all the possible means to solve it using our own internal resources, and that's exactly what we're doing. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Yes?
Adam Danusko, I represent Poland. I work for the Military Institute of Engineering Technology. And there's already the second day we are discussing about donors. Yesterday I raised one question. Is there any chance that European Union can participate in this financial support? Right now Poland has the presidency of European Union. What I heard, there is already signed a big financial support for Ukraine. And my question is, does Ukraine, or Minister of Education in Ukraine, is willing to separate this budget from European Commission, maybe include this mine action demining?
In Ukrainian budget allocated some kind of $70 million to a program that for compensation farmers to clearance his plots from explosive ordnance. This fund allocated by Ukrainian taxpayers. Partly these funds covered by Ukraine facility that was mentioned. Yes, partly. But when we're talking about these resources, it's about restarting, reboosting Ukrainian economy according to restart agriculture activities.
Any other comments, questions? No. Okay. Thank you very much for attending this session, and wish you all a great rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you.